Hello everyone, it's Carrie, and in today's video I'm working on this supersized Madeline Hatter Ever After High doll, and I'm making her into Cyndi Lauper. I'll be showing you the steps I took to prep the doll as well as the full face-up video. So to get started, I dipped the head in some hot water to soften it up so I could remove it from the body without breaking the attachment that goes through the neck. And that was really important because this is a very hard vinyl that's used for the head on these dolls as opposed to the softer vinyl that's used for the 11-inch dolls. So I had to be extra careful, and I held my breath while I did it, and when I removed it, everything went smoothly, luckily. So then the next thing was trying to remove the hair. I've done these 17-inch dolls in the past. I've made some customs with them, and I know that it's super challenging to remove the hair from the scalp because of the thickness and hardness of the vinyl. So I tried to pull it through the neck and it was not having it. So I ended up cutting the back of the head so I could remove the rest of the hair, and then I used this super glue to glue it back on and let it dry for a few hours before I got started on the reroute. So it fit perfectly back in, and that super glue is very strong, and it held in while I did the reroute. So I used some acetone to remove the factory paint from the face and the head, and she was nice and clean and ready for her reroute. For the reroute, I used some soft alpaca copper colored yarn that I treated and by thinning out and separating. And here she is, nice and rerouted with that fluffy hair. And you can see that it's nice and thick. I love using this alpaca in particular because it just is nice and thick, and you can't really see through to the scalp. But I do paint the scalp with a similar color to the yarn that I'm using before I get started on that. So this Madeline Hatter comes with her legs are a different color than the rest of the body. Luckily it's a nice light pink color, so it wasn't too difficult to work with. What I did was spray it with several coats of Mr. Super Clear and then do several layers of pastel. So just built up some peach colored pastel until it was a closer match to the rest of the body. She was going to be wearing pantyhose anyway, so it didn't need to be perfect, but I wanted it to be as close as possible. So for the hands, I actually have a 17-inch Draculara, and her hands were peach. This Madeline Hatter had blue hands, so I didn't want to have to risk doing the several layers of color to try to get it to match the skin tone from a blue. That would just be too much and risk chipping, especially on something as small as the hand. So I did switch those out with the Draculara hands that were pink, and I was able to add a little bit of pastel to them without the risk of, chipping the color. So on to the face up. So I'm drawing the Cyndi Lauper squint on this one. I've drawn a couple of different versions of her eyes, in different facial expressions. I usually do it pretty similar, but I like the squint the best, I think, so I'm just making them a little bit squintier than some of the others I've done. If you're interested in seeing the full collection of Cyndi Lauper dolls that I've done, I've posted some pictures on my Instagram. And those can be seen in my feed there. So it was a little challenging to draw on this compared to the smaller ones from the perspective of I was really worried that I was going to smudge the lower portion of the face, so I did use a paper towel here and there to rest my hand, because your hand's in a different position when you're trying to draw on this. So I'm using a Faber Castell eraser because there was a little bit of residue on the cheek there. Oh, I have some good news. So I opened an Amazon shop through the Amazon influencer program so I could list all of the supplies that I use, make it easier for my subscribers to be able to see all the supplies, and I was able to add some information on each of them. I'm often asked in several videos what supplies that I use for certain things, and I do have a supplies video that I posted a while back. I can put the link to that in an iCard here, but this is much easier because every supply that I use that can be possibly purchased on Amazon, I'm putting in the shop. So you can click on that one link in the description box below to go to my shop and see all of the supplies. I have them organized as far as face-up supplies, costume supplies, body molding supply or body modification supplies, even my recording equipment, and the other art supplies that I use for drawing and painting and so forth. I'm putting all of that in that shop. And then I also was able to put little comments next to them to tell you guys what I use it for and kind of a little bit of a review. So it's a super great place for you guys to check out and just to get that information. And if you do make a purchase from there, I do get a small commission or small percentage of that charge, but even if you don't make a purchase, I think it's a great tool for you guys to use. If you're interested in what I use, it's all there. So let me know if you think anything's missing, or if you have any questions in the comment section. I'll be happy to help you, but hopefully that's a good help to you guys. So here again, I'm using the paper towel and I'm doing the lips. I'm using a sort of a terracotta color to give her more of a natural lip. So for the lips, I added some white to the bottom lip and blending that out with a Q-tip. If you're a supporter over on Patreon, the June close-up clip for this month was drawing the lips. So I actually walked through the steps of how I create the lips on one of my recent dolls. So you can get a better idea in real time of the steps that I take to build the color and the detail and techniques. I also give some other tips on line weight and thickness and how to make it a little bit more realistic and just add a little bit of realism and dimension to those lips and other lines that you add to the face. So that's a good one if you haven't seen that video and you're a supporter over on Patreon at the festival level or above. Check that out. So the brush that I'm using here is called a spotter. It's a very tiny, I think it's for either mixed media or watercolor. It's a soft bristle brush and it's very small. And I use that to blend out the sort of the smoky eye and and also some other areas on the face. Sorry, my hand was in the way there, but I believe I was adding to the nostrils. I like to, one of the tips that I give to my patrons is when each month I do one-on-one sessions with them where I look at their work and talk through how areas where I think that they could add some or use some different techniques to take it kind of to the next level. And so one of the things that I've been telling them is to make the nostrils the same shape as the character that you're trying to portray. If you just fill them in, that looks good. And in my opinion, some people choose not to fill in the nose, but I like to fill out the nostrils and then also make them the same shape as the character that I'm working on by going outside of the nose a little bit, or outside of the hole on the mold. It's kind of hard to explain, but I plan on doing another close-up clip of doing that part of the face just to kind of show them how to do that. Been having a lot of fun with my patrons and watching them, seeing their work and watching them grow. It's a lot of fun. We're also going to be doing a group a group challenge where we all are choosing a theme and making a doll for it. So that's coming up in the next couple of months, and I'll be showing those dolls on a YouTube video in the future. So I'm using this thing, I think I was using a little micro brush there a minute ago, but it's a little brush type. It's almost like a little swab, and it's used to apply false eyelashes, and you can find it on Amazon, and I don't think I added that to my shop, so I'll have to look for that and add that in there. But that just reminded me, it's a good little tool for blending very, very tiny areas. So I'm just adding layer after layer of color. At this point, I've given her probably another couple of coats of Mr. Super Clear, and that gives it a little bit more tooth, so I can add more color on top of what I've already done. At the time I'm recording this video, I actually do still have this particular Cyndi available. She is in the shop at, I think she's like 30% off now, which is as low as I can go on her. So she's still in there at this point that I'm recording this. I have had a couple of inquiries, so hopefully if you're interested, she'll be available at the time this video goes up. But I'll put the link to my Etsy shop in the description box below. I have a mid-year sale on select dolls in my shop at this time. So I'm just adding some highlights to the lip, and then I blend those out so they're not such harsh lines. I did little lines down the bottom lip, and then like I said, I blend them out so they're not so harsh. So I wanted to give her a sideways glance, so I'm drawing in the eye looking to her left. And looking at this doll, it's also reminding me, for those of you who are a supporter on Patreon and you have had a one-on-one help session, and I've mentioned adding some highlights. If you can see on the forehead and the nose of this one, I did add that white, the white pastel, and blended that out with a larger paintbrush. And so if you can tell by looking at this, it does add a good bit of dimension, a little bit more realism when you add that extra highlight. So something to try. And when you add that pastel to your paintbrush, dip it out on a paper towel a little bit, and then add it to the doll, so that way you don't get the pastel everywhere. I think that a lot of people are nervous to add the pastel to the doll because it gets everywhere, but if you pat it out on a paper towel a little bit before you put it on the doll, that helps. So for her costume, I just made a simple black skirt with some lace and plaid fabric trim around the bottom, and a pretty simple black corset top, and then just gave her a bunch of embellishments with some tulle and some chains and some fingerless gloves I made, just to look like the version of Cyndi that I found on the internet. I'm not sure what it's from. It's a kind of one of the classic Cyndi looks, one of her more iconic looks that when you look up Cyndi Lauper, you see that photo pretty soon after you scroll through the pictures of her online. But I don't know that it's from a certain video, or it may have been from like a magazine cover or something. I don't recognize it from like an album cover or video. And I also did go back and add some yellow to her hair just to give her a couple of different shades. Or maybe, oh, I guess I didn't on this one. I've made so many. And I gave her some metallic pearlescent paint for the makeup detail that kind of goes across her eyelid and cheek. So I hope you guys liked this video. If you did, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye!